The Trump administration's pledge to ramp up immigration enforcement doesn't just mean longer hours for ICE agents. To some private sector companies, tougher immigration enforcement means a boom in business. And that boom doesn't just benefit for-profit prisons and bail bonds, it helps the tech and transportation industries too. Here's who's making money from immigration enforcement. Tech. A lot of technology companies work with ICE to help run its operations, and their contracts are worth millions. Here are some of the big ones. Microsoft. Microsoft has a $19.4 million contract with ICE. The company's website says it offers ICE cloud-based Azure government capabilities, which, quote, utilize deep learning to accelerate facial recognition and identification. Thomson Reuters Special Services. A subsidiary of media giant Thomson Reuters won a $6.8 million contract with ICE in March 2018. The contract says Thomson Reuters will provide support for ICE's Enforcement and Removal Operations Unit in its mission to locate, arrest, and remove criminal aliens that pose a threat to the public's safety. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. The HP spinoff signed a $75 million contract with U.S. Customs and Border Protection in 2017 to manage the agency's Network Operations Center. The company has since divested its Enterprise Services division, and the contract is now with a company called Perspecta. Motorola Solutions. In late 2017, Motorola struck a $13.3 million two-year deal with ICE to run something called a Tactical Communications Program. Transportation. Once people are detained, there's the question of how to physically get them to a detention center. And that's where transportation companies come in. ICE uses ground transportation, charter and commercial aircrafts, and officer escorts to physically deport people from the U.S. ICE Air Operations, its own air transportation division, works with GSA to contract charter companies like CSI Aviation and Zephyr Aviation to operate its aircraft. Part of DHS's budget allocates funds to commercial aircraft contracts, though big-name brands have been quick to distance themselves from ICE. Airlines like American and United have said they're not aware of any separated children being flown on their planes, but both companies, among others, have asked the government to refrain from using their airlines to do so. And then there's ground transportation. It's a pretty big part of ICE's transportation and removal program budget. One of its private sector partners, GeoTransport, has over 300 vehicles to support ICE, the U.S. Marshals Service, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and other state-level contracts. GeoTransport is actually part of a much larger publicly traded company called Geo Group. And that leads us to for-profit prison companies. For-profit prisons are awarded contracts from the government to run many of ICE's detention facilities. The more immigrants they're able to detain, the more money they're able to make. In some cases, the government is making billion-dollar deals for a single facility.
Immigration policy is a key part of the story for these private prison operators, but it's not the whole story. And that's where the companies would have you understand the other sources of revenue and other growth opportunities for them.
Geo Group is one of the largest for-profit prison corporations in America. It oversees nearly every step of the detention process, from prison design to electronic tracking of released immigrants. And it's optimistic about future earnings under Trump. In April 2017, it won the first ICE contract under the Trump administration, a $110 million deal for the development and operation of a 1,000-bed detention facility in Conroe, Texas. That contract alone is expected to generate $44 million in annualized revenues. CoreCivic is another major player in the for-profit prison industry. In 2014, it reportedly struck a $1 billion four-year deal with ICE to manage a 2,400-bed detention facility in Dilley, Texas. That deal was renegotiated for a lower price in 2016.
You might have heard of public-private partnerships and other forms of infrastructure. These two corporations are now pushing public-private partnerships in immigration detention centers, prisons, and jails.
This might be a less obvious moneymaker, but at least one bail bond company has found a niche in immigration detention. Libre by Nexus is a company that helps immigrants post bail in exchange for monthly payments and agreeing to wear a GPS ankle device. By early 2017, CEO Mike Donovan told the Washington Post the company had earned more than $30 million in revenue. However, Libre by Nexus is now the subject of multiple investigations. These examples alone don't illustrate the full scope of the private sector companies cashing in on immigration enforcement. There are also healthcare companies, food service groups, money transfer services, and more working in tandem with for-profit prisons and ultimately the U.S. government to help run the multi-billion-dollar business of immigration enforcement.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.